Today, we will travel to the most legendary place in China with a single mission, and that is to find the liquid gold that was once drunk in the region. And according to multiple historical records, in a place called Wuyishan, there is a national treasure insured for millions of dollars, which at the same time is the source of one of the most famous legends in this country. But to really understand what it is and why it's so valuable, our first stop is the Confucian Temple, which is behind me. Its name is... And during the Song Dynasty, this place was known as the Harvard of the South. And that meant that along its corridors and pavilions walked some of the most distinguished and wealthy people in the nation. And it was precisely among these elites that the culture developed, which raised the price of something that at first glance might seem so simple. Join me to discover why. Right now, we are in what used to be a neighborhood for the elites of China during the Song Dynasty. And if we come here, it's so you can understand the cultural context of what ended up making this drink so expensive, since the people who consumed it were not just anyone, but rather merchants, tax collectors, rulers, and scholars who came from wealthy families. Since this drink was extremely expensive and highly prohibitive for people who didn't have money, and if you notice, these neighborhoods are very well preserved and very beautiful, but they are also built in a rather special way that helped them prevent fires. And this type of construction is called matuyan, which can be translated as stepped walls, and if you notice, each one is at a different level. This helped prevent fires from spreading from house to house. It's as if the city were crooked, and it's not because there's an uneven ground, but because they did it on purpose. Let's say it was a way to prevent that if your house caught fire, you would end up burning all your neighbors too. Now we're going to enter a place called Fenggang Village, which in ancient times was the equivalent of a business club for very wealthy people. And back then, if you wanted to make connections with wealthy people with whom you could build a business, you had to come to this kind of place. And relationships were built not around alcohol as they are today, but around tea culture, so join me to learn how they did it. From the entrance, you can already see luxury at its finest. And this isn't just any building, it's built based on the principles of feng shui. And that's why they pay attention to every detail, and every part of this building has a meaning. But first, let's go inside so you can see how the tea ceremony was performed. What we're seeing isn't just any ceremony, but something known as whisking the tea. And during the Song Dynasty, this was not only an art, but it also became a competition. And this competition was known as ducha, and the rules were quite clear. Whoever had the thickest foam was the winner. And for that, they had to whisk the powdered tea in a very specific way that allowed them to raise the level of foam in the cups. And for that, they couldn't use just any cup. They needed some very special bowls known as Jian. And today we're going to have the opportunity to make our own. Now we're arriving at a Jian workshop to see how they do it and to make our own bowl, which is what we need to be worthy of drinking the liquid gold we're looking for. And I have to say that it feels like a pretty familiar environment because I grew up in Metepec, state of Mexico, which is very famous for its clay crafts. In fact, that's where the Tree of Life is made, which is so famous around the world. They even have a sample in England. But today we're here to make tea vessels. I find it very interesting how the roof is stepped. If you notice, it's not just one, but they built different layers of roof. And I don't know if it's the same logic to prevent fires, but it looks interesting, doesn't it? It's amazing how similar it is to my hometown, from the construction, which is like the wooden roofs with tiles, to the brick columns. And look, I imagine this is the oven. Hello, hello? 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 Look, he's doing a live stream. Are you live?
Yes.
Oh, very good, very good. I can speak Chinese, but only Mandarin. No dialects. Do they have dialects here?
Of course.
来了一个那个外面的朋友啊。
Hello, greetings to everyone. My name is Max. I'm a vlogger from Mexico. Nice to meet you. I'm here to see how they make the bowls for tea.
Don't you have ones like these over there?
No, we don't. But I want to make one, to give it to my dad as a gift. What are you doing?
He's preparing the ovens for the bowls.
He's teaching us how the oven works, and I found it really interesting because he's doing a live stream. And nowadays there are a lot of people who live in this kind of place. Besides their business, they also make money from social media. because nowadays they can do live streams and receive donations. And this is interesting because they share a daily routine that people in the city hardly ever see, so it ends up being interesting for everyone. And here what they're doing is feeding the oven, which is the oven where we're going to make our pots later. This one obviously isn't on, but inside we would have these divisions or these little baskets where they put the cups, and that's where they're baked. Now he's showing us the process to make our own container, our own bowl, vessel, whatever you want to call it. And it has to be a pretty specific technique. From the same tower he took out these three we have here. All he did was squeeze the neck and the vessels came out. And I'm sure ours won't turn out the same, but we're going to try. How do I start, Maestro?
Aye. Moisten your hands, that way it's easier.
He didn't let me warm up. He got my hands dirty and told me to get ready, because that's what it's all about. And I really don't think it's going to turn out well, but the reason I wanted to sit here is to explain to you what makes these cups so special. And as I mentioned before, their name is Jian, and they're made from a type of clay, which has a high iron content, and this iron content is important. Because when you fire the cups, the iron content bursts and creates patterns that are unique to each cup. And at the same time, they're unpredictable, which can greatly increase their value. There's a belief that the iron content changes the taste of the tea. That's why they say the real way to drink liquid gold is in one of these. And today we're going to do it in my own. Let's see if I can pull it off. I don't know what I'm doing.
Just press here with that finger, perfect. Move this other finger away from there.
Look, mine. We've finished modeling our cup, but this is just the beginning. In fact, it's not even the first step, because earlier, the artisans had to extract, prepare, and let the clay rest so that we could get to model it. However, I was just told that today we won't be able to take our cup with us, because the process takes much longer than I thought, and before we can even bake it, it needs to dry naturally, which takes about 7 to 20 days depending on the weather conditions. And then it takes a whole day to add a glaze that has a high iron content, which is what will eventually give the cup its shape and colors. And finally, there's the firing, which can take between 4 and 7 days depending on the result you want to achieve. Since the final patterns and the color of the cup vary a lot depending on the oven temperature and the amount of time it spends inside. But even after firing, there's always a chance that the pieces will be discarded because often the desired pattern isn't achieved. Because if there are small variables, things can go wrong and often they end up making them again. But just imagine how impressive it is to know that these kilns we just visited are running day and night, since these containers have to be fired at a constant temperature for a certain amount of time. But even though today we won't be able to take the vessel I just made, we did manage to borrow one. So now it's time to travel to Wuyishan to tell you the legend of the most expensive tea in the world, to see how it's planted and to finally taste it. Finally, we've arrived at the most legendary place in China, which is located in the north of Fujian province, but in the southeast of China. Its name is Wuyishan, and it's a natural and cultural park that's surrounded by red rock mountains, giving it spectacular views. And at the same time, it has many winding rivers and hidden temples waiting to be discovered. And if we've decided to nickname it that, it's not just because of its wonderful landscapes or the fact that in the year 1999, it was designated as a United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site, but also because it was here that one of the most interesting legends of this country originated. And at the same time, it caused the tea you're seeing behind me to become worth 10 times its weight in gold. And according to the story, many years ago, there was a young student who decided to set out on a journey from southern China to the capital, Beijing, to take the imperial exam. Back then, this exam could change your life because if you passed it, you could get government positions that were much better paid and full of prestige. Therefore, the protagonist of our story was willing to go through all the difficulties that such a journey involved. And along his journey, he fell ill, right in this place. For him, this was a big problem, because keep in mind that back then, there was no other means of transportation except your own feet. But just when the young man thought that was the end of his journey, a local monk appeared and offered him a drink made with the local tea. The young man drank it with a lot of skepticism, but immediately began to feel better, to the point where he was able to resume his journey to the city of Beijing, but not without first taking a small bag of the miraculous tea with him. When he arrived in Beijing, the student not only passed the exam but ended up as one of the best in his class. For this, he received a red robe that was given as a recognition at that time. And from this point in the story, there are different versions. Some say that after a few years of performing his duties in the government, he decided to return to this place to show his gratitude, not only to the monk but also to the tea bushes. And for this he took his red robe, which at that time was known as the Hongpao, and he placed it over 6 tea bushes, which to this day are known as the mother bushes. On the other hand, there is another version that says that while our protagonist was serving as an imperial official, there was a day when the empress fell ill and the student decided to share some tea with her, which made the empress recover quickly. And as a sign of gratitude, the emperor ordered the bushes from which the tea came to be honored by placing the student's robe over them. But it doesn't really matter which version is real, because in the end, this legend made tea go viral and become a status symbol. Not only in that era, but even to this day. Proof of this is that in the year 2005, there was an auction in which 20 grams from the 6 mother trees were sold for the incredible amount of 30,000 United States dollars. And that's why, even today, many people know it as liquid gold, because literally it became worth much more than its weight in gold. Now that we know its value and why it's so valuable, let's discuss what it is. Well, thanks to the legend, its name remained as Da Hong Pao, which means big red robe, but in reality it's a very famous type of tea throughout China known as oolong cha or oolong tea. This actually is like the halfway point between green tea and black tea. And many people say that it's a more complex type of tea, deeper and with a lot of character. But at the same time, it's also known as rock tea since it needs a very specific type of rock cliff to be able to grow. And that's exactly what we can find here in Wuyishan. However, the original type of tea that comes from the 6 mother bushes is no longer sold today in order to try to preserve them. But if it's not sold, then what are all these bushes you're seeing around me? Well, most of them are derived clones that come from the original bushes and retain about 90% of the characteristics of the original tea. And like in many other industries, there are levels of purity that can raise the price of tea. There are teas in many different price ranges, from thousands of dollars to the cheaper versions that can cost you $10 per bag. Perhaps the main purpose of this trip is to tell you the legend of tea. But this is still a legendary place because throughout the 250 square kilometers of the national park, there are multiple spectacular stops, and this is just one of them. In fact, locals bring their drones and everything to take amazing photos. And nowadays, it has become a hobby for retired people to travel around the country they couldn't get to know before and take all kinds of photos. And you can't imagine the incredible equipment they bring. They have cameras that cost a fortune, drones, all the technology needed to make a documentary worthy of Netflix. Now we're arriving at the headquarters of the company that produces and distributes this tea. Hello.
Hello, welcome Max. My name is Caddy. Thank you.
Could you explain to us where we are?
Of course, we are at the official headquarters of this tea company. Our company was founded in 2001 and now we are leaders in the tea industry.
And your specialty is Da Hong Pao, right?
Yes, we specialize in Da Hong Pao. Da Hong Pao is a very special oolong tea. And we also have very expensive Da Hong Pao. It's expensive because production is rare with only a small amount harvested each year. The amount of production is very, very limited, and now the market of Da Hong Pao is forbidden to harvest it.
That's right.
It's so expensive and rare that people in the village have never tried it. There must be several factors involved.
All right, there are many factors that influence that, and now we're going to try it.
Yes, the first thing to see are the tea gardens, and then we'll come back here to taste a cup of Da Hong Pao.
All right, let's go.
Chinese tea farmers.
It's a traditional hat worn by Chinese tea farmers.
This is the basket for harvesting. Hang it in front of your body.
In front of the body. Now we have everything we need to pick our own tea leaves. And the guide just told me that tea is so important for the region. that they even have an impressive show created by the same director who was in charge of directing the Beijing Olympics event in 2008. Therefore, there are people from all over the country who come here just to witness the night show that we are about to see. But for that, we're going to need to pick some tea and drink it because we'll need the caffeine to stay up until late at night. This is Jennifer, she's a tea expert. And she's going to explain to us how we have to collect the leaves because there's a specific way to do it.
Our tea is harvested only in the spring. Every year between April 20th and May 20th, just 1 month of harvest. Right now it's winter. We don't have many young leaves. Like this one. This one is too big. It's already old. It's not a good option. This one here is too small, too new and young. We need them to be like this. But how do you pick the leaves? You can't just slap the leaves. You have to check and fold 2 or 3 leaves or 4 leaves with a pad. Then we pick the tea leaves that are nice and loose. The water will come out of them, and then we can make a perfect and delicious tea.
And do they do it by hand? Do people pick the tea by hand every year?
Nowadays, we do it both by hand and by machine. And since it happens in just 1 month, we have to hurry.
And I heard that there are about 6 trees that are very expensive and are insured, right?
Here in Wuyishan in Nigeria, Nesta, there are 6 magical tea trees. They are our mother bushes for the Dahongpao. And today they are about 399 years old. If a tea bush is more than 100 years old, the product becomes more expensive.
Less more expensive.
Normally, it can cost 4,000 yen for half a kilo.
Oh my God.
Since we got Hong Kong back, a bag of mother tree tea, 20 grams were auctioned for 200,000 yuan.
200,000 yen?
Yes.
And I heard about the 6 legendary bushes. Do you know the story of the student who went to Beijing? They're insured by the bank. Do you know their insurance amount?
I think that's a secret. I don't know.
Ah, okay. We're in the souvenir shop of the tea brand, and here is the most expensive tea. This one costs 11,600 yuan for 10 grams. It's a little box, and I don't want to get into debt, so it's better if we don't touch it too much. But just so you can see it, this is the famous liquid gold, in what I would even call its economical version. They won't put the one worth $20,000 here since those are sold at auctions. The guide just confirmed to us that in 2005 it was sold for $30,000 for 20 grams. This is a box of 100. But besides tea, there are many things you can buy here, all of them not exactly cheap, so to speak. This costs 2,000 yuan, I don't even know what it is. This one costs 3,000 yuan, that's 9,000 pesos for this little box of tea. The store manager just told me that this tea behind me. It comes from the 2nd generation of the magic trees, or the trees of the legend, and it has a price of 9,999 yuan. And it's so expensive that the employee is following me wherever I go. As she sees me picking up little things, she keeps following me. It's like she's making sure I don't steal them or break them. Look, it has a leather handle. It's likely an epic unboxing that ends here. Now we're heading to the living room to try it out with a full ceremony. For that, we're going to sit at this table they prepared for us. And everything is keeping with the red cloth theme. It's really interesting because they created their commercial variant, which is almost like a Coca-Cola. It comes in a can or an aluminum bottle and you can drink it anytime. Let's say this is the affordable version. No way, it comes from legendary trees. Before tasting the tea, you have to wash your hands with tea. It must have disinfectant properties.
It's because the smell of your hands influences the tea tasting. If you clean them with tea, that gets neutralized. That way you enjoy it more.
Here is the tea box. It means red robe because of the legend. And this is the one we're going to drink. I thought it would be either red or green, but it looks black. They let us smell it because it's part of the protocol. I'm sure an expert could distinguish different aromas in it, but to me, it just smells like tea. So let's see what it tastes like.
Some people add sugar to it.
What does it taste like to you?
It's a bit bitter. It has a particular taste.
Could you taste the woody flavor?
Woody?
Yes, it's supposed to taste like wood and bamboo shoots. Do you feel it? I'm joking.
Yeah, I figured.
It's time to watch the night show directed by Zhang Yimou, the famous director of the 2008 Beijing Olympics event. And as I understand it, it's a performance of the legend I told you about earlier. And I'm also very excited because I was told this is the only 360-degree show in the whole country. That means the seats are placed on a platform that can rotate on its own axis, and the whole show takes place in the mountains around us. Here's my ticket. We're in the very important person section and it costs 298 yuan. Let's see how it is. Thank you. Look, from here you can see there's a danger sign because once the show starts, you can't get down since it'll be in constant motion. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. I have to say that I finally understood the definition of the adjective spectacular, because what we just saw can't be described with words. And as soon as the show started, the platform we were sitting on began to rotate on its own axis, revealing different sets they had prepared. Impressive acts with hundreds of performers. At this moment, I don't have the exact number, but in one of them I counted more than 100 people, and then the platform turned and there were about 60 or 70 more waiting for us on the other side. But beyond the infrastructure and the number of people needed to put on this kind of show, I find it truly amazing that China can have this kind of world-class show, because we're talking about a show worthy of the Olympic opening ceremony or any World Cup. In all its cities, and if you go to the south, there are shows like this in Yangshuo. If you go to Shenzhen, there are drone shows. If you go to the northwest, which used to be one of the poorest areas, there's a show in an oasis in the city of Danhuang. And even in cities like these, which I have to admit I didn't know about before, they have a show like this. Just to tell the legend of tea, that's another thing I really like about this country. They have so much history and culture that they can afford to create shows using only elements from their own culture without having to borrow anything from anyone else. And that includes the clothing, the music, the legends, the food, and the traditions, which are so vast that they allow them to organize something like what we just saw. In this case, it was about the legend that I had already told you before. And maybe the only thing I would have liked is for them to have some kind of translation into English. But I know it's difficult, and at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to learn Chinese. But I do have to say that I still haven't reached the level that allows me to enjoy these stories 100% because there's a lot of background. However, I have to say that despite the dozens of shows we've watched over the last 6 years, this one definitely makes it into my top 3. And I can't wait for you to come and tell me how it went for you. But this journey isn't over yet. Now we're going to take a bamboo raft down a river known as the Nine Bends River, which also has its own legend. And that legend says that many years ago, a dragon passed through these lands, creating 9 bends, which today have become the famous river. But before you get to the raft, you have to go through an ancient village that's very beautiful, where there are restaurants from all over China. But what I found most interesting is that they sell tea ice cream. This ice cream is made from da hong pao, which is the local tea or the liquid gold that they use for everything. So I think we're gonna buy one, but after we eat. Hello. We're making friends between rafts. This is a journey with a lot of historical significance, since ancient philosophers used to say that this route is the perfect example of patience. Since if water has the power to erode mountains to create these kinds of curves, it means that patience can do anything, and that with a little perseverance, anything is possible. I really like the concept because on the raft they have a tea ceremony, which is what's happening behind me. Here they have their little stove, their cup, and of course we're going to drink the liquid gold known as the Hong Pao. It's great because they bring the cowboy hat so you don't get sunburned. So if you come to Wuyishan, remember that no tour of this area is complete without a ride on the river and without the show we saw yesterday. For now, this is the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see each other in another video next week.
再见。